Welcome back to Good Old Days. Today we're going to talk about how you can make your application to UBC absolutely perfect and fulfill your dreams of getting into one of the best universities in the entire world. Not only am I going to guide you through the application process, which you can easily find on your own online, but I'm going to give you some insider info and the tips that you need to make sure you guys get in. Let's get into it. The first step to applying is, of course, choosing what you're going to study. At UBC, a program is your area of academic focus, while a degree is the bachelor's designation you'll earn upon graduation. For example, if you study psychology, you'll earn a Bachelor of Arts degree, and if you're studying computer engineering, you'll earn a Bachelor of Applied Sciences degree. While knowing what program you're interested in can be helpful for planning, it's not necessary to finalize the decision right away. That's because at UBC, you'll apply to the degree rather than the program. During your application, you'll be prompted to select a degree and the campus. For example, in engineering, your first year is common where you take a variety of subjects that explore different topics that are found in different types of engineering. Then, at the end of first year, based off your preferences, you rank your program choices for second year and essentially apply again. That's why if you're trying to go for a competitive program, your first year grades will matter. Every year they provide first year engineering students with a document listing the approximate averages to get into each program. And based off these averages, you can gauge how likely you are to get in. For reference, the most competitive program is engineering physics, in which you essentially get an applied science degree along with an honors physics degree, and you need around a 90% average to get in. There's also an interview as part of the engineering physics application process. The next most competitive are computer and mechanical engineering, for which you need around an 85% first year average. As you may already know, I'm in computer engineering and I always wanted to go into computer engineering, so in first year I was aiming for 90s just to be on the safe side. This is different from other universities like UFT or Waterloo because you're essentially competing for a spot in this program and reapplying with your first year grades. This can be annoying for people like me who knew what they wanted to go into, but can be very helpful for people who are unsure of what they want to specialize in and gives them a chance to explore a variety of different topics. Based on my personal experience, if you really want a program and did well in high school and know your own capabilities, then you'll get into the specialization you want. I had around 15 other friends with me in first year who also wanted computer engineering, and all of us got in, so it is possible. Once you've chosen the degree you want to apply to, you need to look at the admission requirements. These include the general admission requirements and the degree-specific admission requirements. You need to make sure you've completed all the admission requirements by taking the courses needed for your degree. Your competitive average is based off 6 grade 12 courses, which includes all of the required courses needed for your degree, plus the highest out of any remaining courses that you've done. So for example, if I was applying to engineering, they would take the average of Math 30-1 or Math 31, English 30, Physics 30, and Chemistry 30. And then for the last 2 remaining courses, they would take the highest out of whichever other grade 12 courses I've done. It's important to keep in mind here the 70% is the minimum average you need to apply to UBC. I'm sorry to say, but if you do have a 70% average, then it is unlikely that you'll get into most programs at UBC. I would say you should aim for at least mid to high 80s, if not 90s. As much as your personal profile does count towards your application, your grades are the main thing that they will look at. Now there's good news for those of you applying to UBC from Alberta, because UBC automatically adds around an extra 4% onto all of our course averages. So for instance, if you applied with an 86% average in Math 30, then it would automatically get bumped up to a 90%. The reason for this is because Alberta is the only province in Canada with diplomas, which is a province-wide exam to test everyone against the same standard. This way, it's harder for schools in Alberta to raise their students' grades by making their tests easier as compared to another school, because everyone has to take the same test. The next thing you'll want to look at is this list of courses that you can get credit for in your first year of university if you've done any AP or IB courses. Now, I would say transferring credit is one of the main reasons why anyone would take AP or IB courses in high school, because it makes your first year at university much easier, especially if you're in engineering, because now maybe you can take 5 courses instead of 7 like a regular human being. I was taking math IB in high school and I didn't even try for my IB grade, so I wasn't able to get the 6 I needed to transfer credits for first year math courses. And that would have lessened my course load by 2 whole courses, which is a lot in university. I would highly recommend getting transfer credits for at least Math 100 and Math 101, because even though these are first year calculus courses, this is not the same calculus that you learn in high school, because trust me, the calculus you take in grade 12 is nowhere near the difficulty level of calculus in university, even though it's supposed to be the same course. Besides your grades, the other main thing UBC will be evaluating for your application is your personal profile. The personal profile is essentially just a series of short answer questions to help UBC get to know you better as a person and any extracurriculars you may have done. Now, this part of the application is important, but I have heard from multiple upper years that honestly, the personal profile is just a way to make sure that you're somewhat of a regular functioning human and that your grades are the main thing that matters. But nevertheless, you don't want to take that risk, so we're going to go over each question and I'll briefly explain how to formulate your responses for these questions. Now, this is a link to a page where they provide some very general guidelines on how to make your responses, but they're nowhere near as good as the tips that I'm about to give you. These questions also may differ from year to year, but they're more or less the same. The first question is, tell us about who you are. How would your family, friends, and/or members of your community describe you? If possible, please include something about yourself that you are most proud of and why. Now, this is a very open-ended question, but before answering any of these, I need you to remember that UBC is a business at the end of the day. They want a student who's going to stay in school and pay them for the duration of their degree, and hopefully also be successful past university because it makes them look good. They're not going to accept you out of the goodness of their hearts, so you want to try to sell yourself to them through your answers to these questions. I would recommend doing this by incorporating an experience that you've had in the answers of each of these questions and explaining what you've learned from this experience and how you would use those skills in the future. So for instance, for this question, I opened with a general statement about how I strive to be successful in all areas of my life, whether that's academics or sports, and that I put my best foot forward. I then focus in on how I volunteered at the YMCA for badminton and how this experience taught me the importance of working in a team. I explained how I was proud to give back to the community through my volunteering and how this experience gave me leadership skills that I would use to be successful in university and beyond. The next question is, what is important to you and why? Now, in this question, I explain how stepping out of my comfort zone and trying new activities helps me gain new skills. Then the experience I talk about is how I joined debate club in high school when I'd never done debate before. I explained how I was nervous to speak in front of large audiences, but this experience helped me overcome that fear and become a better public speaker. It also helps me develop myself as a person and continuously add to my skill set. Now, this next question asks you to list 5 activities or accomplishments in one or more of the following areas, and then they've listed a bunch of areas. Make sure to name all 5, even if you think maybe one of them is not as important, and just briefly explain what you did for each of these and try to include numbers in your responses. These numbers can be like the number of people you worked with, the number of money you raised in an activity. These type of numbers just help you stand out and make your responses much better. Now, for this next question, you do exactly as the question asks and expand more on how the activities you picked help you grow your skills and how these skills will be applicable in the future. Make sure to pick a good reference as well in case they do contact your reference, but most of the time they don't. Finally, the last question is asking you to give UBC any more information about yourself, and then it gives you a couple of examples of what those could be. Now, this question may seem optional, but you should definitely answer it, and again, try to include an experience from which you've learned something. Overall, for all of these questions, try to be smart with your responses and think from the point of view of a UBC representative who's going to evaluate your application and why they should pick you. But also be honest, because I personally believe I write the best when I believe what I'm writing down. And that sums up the personal profile section of your UBC application. Now, we've pretty much covered everything needed for the UBC application, and now it's time to look at dates and deadlines. So applications open in early October every year, and you must apply by December 1st for early admission consideration. and by January 15th at the latest. And again, these dates could be a bit different from year to year, but it's around the same time. I would recommend everyone to apply by December 1st for early consideration because there's really no harm in it if you get in early. And if you don't, that's also fine because you'll automatically be considered for the regular round of admissions. If you do get in early, it'll be sometime around February. Otherwise, regular admissions come out around April. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is early admission is technically conditional on the fact that you maintain the average that you applied with, but unless your average drops like 10% somehow, you'll be fine. Now it's time for a little insider tip, which is apply to housing as soon as you've made your Education Planner BC account, which is the account you need to make in order to apply to UBC. And when I mean housing, I don't mean first year housing, I mean housing after your first year. Now, as you may know, first year housing is guaranteed for all UBC students, and that process is fine. You just need to apply before the specified deadline and you'll get housing. However, after first year, if you want to stay on residence, there's two options: winter session residence and year-round housing. Winter session residence is a lottery system in which if you get housing, you only get it for that year and you have to reapply every year, and you may not get the same residence each year you apply. If you don't get winter session residence, you'll be put on a wait list for this, and it's very unlikely you'll get a spot because there's a limited number of residences that are eligible for winter session housing. The other option is year-round housing, which has a far higher number of residences, and once you get that, you stay in your residence for the duration of your degree. It's through that option that I'm currently living in Brock Commons, which is part of year-round housing. So the way it works is that it's a first come first serve wait list, which is very long, and that's why I recommend applying as soon as you've made your Education Planner BC account, because that's all you need. Once you have that account, you can log into this website to apply. In your year-round application, you rank the preferences of residences that you want, and here's a list of how I rank the residences based off what I know about how nice each of them are. You should also rank 4-bedroom residences instead of studios or 2-bedroom because you're more likely to get these residences unless you really want a studio and risk not getting in. You can also indicate your earliest move-in date on the year-round application to be right after your first year. So for example, I would put May 1st, 2025 if you're starting your first year in September 2024. And hopefully by the time you're done first year, you'll have moved up far enough to get a spot. So there you have it, everything you need to know to get started on your application to UBC. I've linked all of the resources you might need to review some of the things I've talked about in this video in the description below. Make sure you let me know if you have any questions in the comments and share this video with anyone you know looking to go to UBC. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and best of luck to everyone applying.